Hi everyone, welcome to Staff Treats WorkLifeShow. Special thanks to Collindale Area Works for providing us this fantastic place for conducting this interview. So today we have a special guest, the co-founder of Thriving Tribes, Yssine, who's going to give us some really interesting tips on how to create and preserve a great company culture. So welcome, Yssine. Can you let us know what you do with Thriving Tribes and how long has it been going for?
Sure. So my name is Yssine. I've been in the people human resources space for 10 years now, and I've co-founded Thriving Tribes a year ago. What we do is that we support businesses with everything people. So employee experience, team performance, company culture, we help them setting all of this up, and we do it in a way that is both tailored to their own company, their culture, and also scalable, so adapted to their stage of growth and their ambition of growth as well.
Thank you, Yssine. Can you tell us what is company culture and why it is so beneficial or even important to a company?
Company culture is basically what it's like to work for your company. What's the social environment? You could say that it's the values, the behaviors, routines, expectations that are shared amongst the team. And in other words, it's the way that employees feel engaged, belong to the company, and just connect to your company. Why it's important? It's because in a world where the war for talent is increasing, and especially in spaces like technology and in places like London, Paris or Berlin, it's not enough to have a great product, a great technology to be able to attract and retain talent. It's really about their experience and what it's like for them to work for you. So that's why that's something that companies nowadays need to be more deliberate about it.
Can a business have a negative company culture? And what do you think how to build a positive company culture for a business?
Yes, unfortunately, you will find companies with negative or toxic culture. And often it's companies where there are discrepancies between what is said and what is actually done, or places where negative behaviors are tolerated, or just where people don't feel safe to be themselves. And how to fix it, it's tricky actually, because often it all comes down to the managers, to the leaders of the company. So as long as they don't realize and acknowledge that this is an issue, you can't really do anything about it. But if they do, I think the best way to go about it is to ask people, to ask the employees, the ones who are here living it every day, to ask them for feedback. And sometimes it's tricky to get genuine feedback, especially if people don't feel really safe to speak up. But if you can get that, then you can just involve everyone to build something more positive, and where people will feel more safe and happy just to come to work and contribute to fulfilling the company purpose.
Thank you. So, in your opinion, it's probably the feedbacking system. So, creating a more transparent and more open environment for employees to give feedback to the company managers or owners, that would help with this company culture building, right? Mm.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, often
it's not the case.
No, or you don't really get because if people are already not feeling comfortable, feeling safe in your company, even if all of a sudden you decide to ask them for feedback because you want to do something about it, they may not feel comfortable enough to actually give you a real feedback. So that's why it's a little bit tricky, and sometimes it takes a little time to be able, to get on with a more positive approach.
Thank you. So another question, what is a culture fit?
So culture fit is something that you will hear about around recruitment often. And culture fit, you could define it as the way that a candidate values, attitude, behavior aligns with the company's one. But there's a common misconception around it, because often people, when they recruit, they look for people who are similar to them. And they think...
The perfect match.
Yes. But they think that to get this good match, they need to find people who think like them, who have similar background in terms of education, similar way to solve problems. But it's not the case. Because when you have only clones in an organization, actually it doesn't bring this much value. And in terms of culture as well, it's much more powerful to have individuals who are aligned, you know, same values, same attitude, same behaviors, but with different background, different vision of the world, different ways to approach and solve problems. And I think that teams are much more powerful this way. So that's just something to have in mind when we're trying to hire for culture fit, is that you have to look for what's important. What are the values, not if you will get along with the person, if you will have the same interest, and if you will be happy to have a beer with them, because that's not what's going to bring value to your company.
That's a great point. So on the back of that, I thought of the problem of solving conflict. Obviously, because if you hire someone who's very not similar to your culture at the moment, you know, what you have within the organization, you might experience certain kind of conflict in terms of clashes, in terms of culture clashes, or in terms of different approach and stuff. So what do you think the best way to solve this kind of problem? What would be the most suitable solution for that?
I think what's really important, if you want that diverse teams are able to work together, is to be aligned on what we're trying to achieve. You know, what's the company vision? What are we trying to do? Because if everyone is working towards the same goals and is wanting to achieve the same thing, then it's going to be easier to, you know, accept to work with people who are a little bit different or who have an approach. Because as long as what you have in mind is the interest of the company and what you're trying to achieve and what you want to do for your customers, you know, what are the problems that you're trying to solve, you'll be able to collaborate a bit more, even if people are a little bit different.
Thank you for that. So can you give us some example of how a good example of a company that's really good at creating or preserving a great company culture? What did they do, or how did they do it?
Yeah, I have a few examples of companies who really are deliberate about preserving their culture. For example, I have one in mind. It's a company which has a culture of transparency. They really want, you know, people to collaborate, to work together, not to have silos and these kind of things. And what they do is that they've put in their settings transparency by design. That means that instead of wondering what they need to share, they just ask what do they need not to share. For example, emails or calendars or shared folders, everything is available and visible by everyone by default. So that's an example. Then there's a company that is really good at making sure that they encourage a continuous learning culture. And yeah, just that people are focused around innovation and lifelong learning. So what they do is that when they do awards to, you know, celebrate people who have achievements or who have been able to exhibit a specific skill, for example, when they give an award for a specific skill, they would give a plant as well. And that symbolizes the skill. So people have, you know, to nurture it and to make sure they look after it, that they don't let it die. So just a little reminder for people to keep this continuous learning thing.
Object.
Yes. But then culture is very unique to a company. So it's not about just going and see what other people do and doing the same. You really have to build it, to develop it, and to make sure that whatever you do, for example, if you decide to implement a new tool or a new process in your company, always have in mind what are we trying to achieve and what's going to be the impact of this on people and the way they behave. And I think that's the best way to go about it, just to always be very deliberate whenever you do anything in your company and the impact that it's going to have on your culture and on the people who are working here.
Thank you. So last question. What would be your special tip, or usually I call it the secret weapon, your own secret weapon that you can give to a company who's looking for a company owner who's looking to build or preserve a better company culture for his company?
A few things. I would say be deliberate about it. Always go back to the why. Whenever you launch something new in your company, ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve and what kind of behaviors am I encouraging? Then I would say do not copy what others do. Each company is unique. A culture is unique by definition. It's a little bit like a personality. So there's no point just doing what everyone else is doing. Really think about what's unique in your company and what will be a reflection of that. And then involve the team, involve people around you. Especially when we're talking about culture, it's about their experience. So just make sure that they're part of the discussion as well.
Thank you so much, Yssine, and thank you very much for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe our channel, and see you next time.